Hey, this is the Swedish Travel Nerd. Yes, I'm all alone today. Lisa is away and yeah, she's teaching teenagers to be proper rock stars. Because that's what we are. And I thought I'd do something different, so I went to Falköping. That's the city where Lisa is in Göteborg, or as non-Swedes call it for some reason, Gothenburg. And I'm in, this is a smaller town in the close area. And since I'm here, I thought I'd give you a peek into the mind of a Swede, or what you can find in a regular small mid-sized town in Sweden. Why not start here? Because what you'll find in every small town in Sweden is this thing. They made their town's name with flowers. You can find this in every small town in Sweden. And I wonder what goes on the meetings that they have when they decide this. I thought we'd do something different, something spectacular. Let's put the name of our city in flowers. The only thing is that everyone else is doing it as well. Well, it's nice. So I'm going to tell you what you can expect to find in a small town in Sweden. Every single small town in Sweden. And you get a bit of a look into the mind of a Swede. Swedes like to get out and go for a walk. And go for a walk in Sweden is not taking a walk in town. It's taking a walk outside in the nature. Because nature is so accessible usually, and we are encouraged to go out in nature. And in all towns in Sweden, as in Falköping, you'll find tracks laid out so that you can go out and take a walk out in the nature. These are usually not that long, and maybe 2, 3, 5K. And the shorter ones are usually lit up because, it's usually dark in Sweden most of the year. So you can ask anyone, where is the elljusspår? That's electric light track. That's the lit up one. So you can always come out, take a walk in nature and experience the Swedish nature. So I'm going to try this one. I'm going to try the long one here, actually. That's a 5.7K easy walk, according to the information. Let's see how that is. Well, those 5.7K really flew by. What a delight that was. Easy to walk, accessible, well maintained. Yeah, wonderful nature, fresh air. And most importantly, since I'm a Swede, there were not that many people. Because a crowded place is a bad place to a Swede. We need space. One thing you also might find in a small town or regular town in Sweden is outdoor gyms. And you shouldn't be surprised if you find them close to the area where you can actually go for a walk in the nature. I suppose these are some kind of push-up things or sit-ups, maybe. I should try them. By the mid-20th century, the standards of the housings within the centers of the towns were usually rather horrible. You couldn't expect to have running water, you wouldn't have a toilet in your own apartment. The national government in Sweden thought, well, now it's time to do something about this situation, and started the biggest project where you build houses in Sweden ever. And it's known since then as the Million Project, just to show the how big it was. And what they did were they built houses cheap or affordable, easy constructions, things that could be reproduced several times. You have a prime example here where you have one house and then you have another that looks the same, and over here you have a third one that looks exactly the same. And these were very popular because the people living in the central cities, well, finally they could have a proper apartment with a working shower and hot water and running water inside the apartment and their own bathroom. So everyone moved out to these places. But after that, well, they renovated the central cities, and as a result, people wanted to move back. They became more popular again. Many of the apartments out in the Million projects stood empty. We have had periods where people moved to Sweden or came to Sweden as refugees, mostly from the Middle East, because that's our closest area where wars are continually going on, and of course during the war in Yugoslavia. And they ended up in these empty apartments, of course. So you can usually find now that culturally it's very diverse in these areas. And Swedes in general are rather skeptical and scared about these areas because, well, different people, aren't they? Aren't you supposed to be scared of them? I've lived in quite a few of these, and they have been the calmest, most wonderful areas I've ever lived in. When you think about the Million projects, again, you usually talk about these big apartment buildings, but people tend to forget that it also included regular houses. So if you go by a place in Sweden where you see several regular houses that look completely identical, they are from this area as well. It's the 60s, 70s mostly. Let's see if I can find some of those. Yes, it turned out I only had to walk down the street to find some of the standalone houses from the Million project. And as you can see, they are identical. And now, when they built them, I'm sure all of them were the same color. Now everyone is trying to make them individual. So, yeah, now they're all different colors, and people have added things to them. So they look a bit different. But yeah, again, these were part of the Million project as well. Something you'll find in every small or bigger city in Sweden is a library, in Swedish called bibliotek, as it says here. And why would I mention this if you are a tourist in Sweden or just visiting? Because you aren't gonna get some books to read in Swedish. Well, there are a few reasons. You would be surprised, but there are usually magazines and newspapers in maybe your language. Who knows? They are, yeah, you'd be surprised. Check them out. You'll find the toilets here if you are in a place where you don't know where to find that. And free Wi-Fi is a common thing at libraries in Sweden, so you don't have to go and spend money on a cafe, konditori. You can go to the library. But the final and major reason is librarians. Because if you want to know something about the town you're in, if you want any kind of tourist information, cultural events, all that, go talk to a librarian in Sweden because they will know everything. They have spent their life, devoted their life to spread knowledge to other people, and they will be so helpful. So that's my pro tip. Go to a library, talk to a librarian, and you'll get 100 other things that you didn't know about to do in the town you're in. In every Swedish town in Sweden, you can expect to find a museum that is run by the local government. In this case, we have Falbygdens Museum that's covering the area. It's not only Falköping, it's the area around Falköping. And since this is a smaller town, the museum is the museum. So it's not like you have a separate museum for arts and a separate museum for archaeology and a separate museum for, I don't know, natural history or something. You have a museum. So usually there'll be exhibitions about historical events, about archaeological findings in the area, and maybe a art exhibition at the same place. I haven't set my foot in here, but if I'm wrong, I will go in here during the week. I will make a follow-up video, but I'm sure I'm right, because that's how a Swedish museum works. It's Monday today, so it's closed. So that's I think that's usual in the rest of Europe, because they are closed on Mondays, because people working at museums have to have a day off as well, because they're usually open during the weekends. Every town in Sweden has, or at least every town in Sweden worth its name, has a park or a few parks. But there's usually one park that's the city park, which is the case here in Falköping. Yeah, it's usually a nice area, nice flowers and trees and green areas where you can spend some time. Yeah, it's common that they have a play area as well if you have kids. And I'm gonna film the stage. There's a stage here as well, which is also common in the city park in most cities in Sweden, which is a nice stage that's rarely used. It's a shame. So if you wanna lie down in the shade on a hot day, or just enjoy some fun activities on a nice grass field, go to the city park. If you're into sports and that kind of activities, you'll be sure to find an area dedicated, or several, to these kinds of things, as here in Falköping, of course. You have the indoor area here and the outdoor area here, where it's basically any outdoor sport you can think of, and mainly the big sport in Sweden, as in most European countries, is football. It's not soccer, it's football. It's a ball that you use your feet to move around, so football. As I said, usually the museum in the town in Sweden is the one that's run by the local government. But you can almost everywhere find other museums that's run by one single person or a local organization. And they are usually more, I don't know, narrow and usually are centered around special things. For instance, here in Falköping, we found a sign here that says there's a museum about sports. I know there are a few other museums here that are really special and you don't find anywhere else. So I think that's a common thing in Sweden. You can find there's some local person that's really interested in something really specific, and they have all the egg cups you can find in the world, or different spoons, those kinds of things. So yeah, look it up. Like most European cities, the towns are centered around a square, and Falköping is no exception to the rule. And in Sweden, it's rather common that you find a fountain. We just like to see and hear water. Here you also find the tourist information in Falköping, and that's something you'll find. You don't necessarily find them around the center squares, but you will always find this tourist information in the towns of Sweden, so you can find out all about the events occurring, the sights to see, the places to go. Usually they are very helpful. Here you also find Systembolaget, the only place where you can buy alcohol in Sweden. And that's a great thing, since Swedes were drinking themselves to death, and now it's more limited. So you can't buy alcohol in regular food stores. Let's talk about architecture for a while. Here you can see an example of an older building. This is probably my guessing. I'm not an architect, but I would guess this is around the turn of the century, between 1800s and 1900s. And that's what you usually find in the center of cities. This depends on what has happened to the cities. Falköping has not been burned down. That has happened to most of the cities in Sweden. So that way you can find a lot of wooden houses here, which is not common. Usually there are a lot of built on stone or bricks in the middle of the cities. You can also find very obvious results of buildings that were torn down and rebuilt with something completely different. You have them on both sides on this square, actually. So I'm sure there were old wood buildings there or something else. This was popular during a period of time, in the 50s and 60s mostly. Okay, it's time to wrap it up from Falköping and my odyssey through the life of being a Swede. And finally, I should talk about what you can expect from us fellow Swedes when you come here as a visitor. And I would say go up to a Swede, ask them questions. You can expect that every Swede you meet understands and speaks English fluently. So if you speak English, you won't have any problem here. You can go up to anyone and ask them things. Swedes are brought up to be socially awkward. We are not socially trained, but don't let that stop you, because a Swede is usually more than helpful. They will go to such lengths to help you. They will basically do anything in their power. And they are, especially in these smaller towns, patriotic in the most beautiful way, in that they really love their local environment, the local area, and they want you to know about it. They want to share it, and they want you to be part of it. That's what I've experienced going around in Sweden and living in Sweden. So talk to a Swede. Don't let our social behavior scare you away, because we are generally really nice and friendly once you talk to us. And finally, I should mention as well that you might be surprised that when you walk down the street, even in a small town like Falköping, you realize that most Swedes aren't that blonde and blue-eyed. Well, take me as an example. I'm not either of those things. And of course, this has to do with my ancestors being from another country, moving here. Again, the blue-eyed and blonde people moved here as well. There were other people who lived here before them. But yeah, you can see that people are obviously have ancestors in Africa, in the Southern Europe, Middle East, Far East, South America. And that's what makes Sweden amazing. We have several different cultures all contributing to what is Swedish. Because after all, the cinnamon in the cinnamon buns doesn't come from Sweden, and the spices in the traditional Swedish meatballs doesn't come from Sweden. Even the potatoes that we have with all our traditional meals came to Sweden just a few centuries ago. So yeah, that's Sweden. So welcome to Sweden. Come to a smaller town. The bigger towns are, I mean, they are fine, but they are very similar to other bigger towns in Europe. It's the smaller towns where you get to experience the actual Swedes and Sweden as it actually is. So dare to go outside the big towns, and see you soon. If you want to find accommodation, if you want to, if you want to, we have so many different cultures contributing. That's a hard word to say.